You ever get so invisible that people forget you're even there? Like your entire existence is just background noise, the hum of the lights, the squeak of a mop. Yeah, that was me, Elias Cole, cleaning the marble floors of the Elysium Academy for Advanced Arts, which sounds grand unless you're the one scrubbing alien footprints off the damn tile. You know what I mean? On Luminina, that shimmering world at the heart of the celestial harmonics empire, the galaxy's brightest learned art, well, I just tried to keep the place from smelling like cafeteria leftovers, working muscles hard enough to forget what I'd lost, trying to ignore the side glances from students who saw me as little more than a walking cautionary tale. Don't be like him. One afternoon, while I was wrestling a mop over a stain that wouldn't quit, I heard this voice, so sweet and cold it cut right through the haze. "Excuse me, maintenance worker, you missed a spot." That was instructor Lania Navarth, their top maestro, all blue skin and white hair and silver jewelry, her gown flowing like a midnight wave, flanked by a swarm of perfect, pale students whose laughter seemed rehearsed for effect. "Observe this specimen," she said, gesturing at me like I was part of some art installation. A human, persistent, not exactly refined. Her baton spun, and those students snickered, their eyes lighting up with amusement and just a little cruelty. You know, in that moment, something in me almost snapped, but I kept my face blank, just said, "We have our own traditions, instructor." She grinned, all ice and sharpness, then pointed at the hall's center, a Xenotone, a fusion of pipe organ and piano, glowing softly, tubes pulsing like a living thing. "Care to demonstrate, human?" she mocked. "Unless you fear embarrassment." The crowd barely held back laughter. I should have walked, kept my head down. But, you ever just get tired of swallowing your pride? I put the mop aside, hands trembling just a little, and said, "I'd be honored." She looked almost surprised, then pleased, and the whole group circled in, waiting for a train wreck. I sat at the Xenotone, the keys smooth under my fingers, and closed my eyes, letting every bit of longing, every bit of pain, run through me. When I played, the music started soft, just a question in the dark, then grew, real, raw, a melody about loss and hope and all the things you can't say out loud, not in a place like this. I played for my mother, for lost friends, for the home I could never go back to. The music filled the hall, and, I swear, the air changed. First, their laughter faded, then I heard someone, maybe the instructor herself, catch her breath. By the time I finished, half those blue-skinned students had tears streaking down their faces, mouths open in shock. And even Lania was just frozen, baton slack at her side. I stood, bowed, grabbed my mop, and went back to work. No need for words. Let them figure it out. But as I swept, I caught the eyes of one student, her gaze lingering, different, curious. Later that night, she found me in the utility corridors, slipped out of her noble's gown and into something simple, still couldn't hide her blue skin or those sharp eyes. But her voice shook when she spoke. "Who are you?" she asked. I just shrugged, just the janitor. But you could tell she wanted more, and so did I. Her name was Anara, daughter of House Talindra, and over the next few days, she kept seeking me out, following the music. She'd listen while I played my old earth harmonica. Nothing fancy, just the last piece of home I had. We talked about art, about rebellion, about how her family secretly fought the Empire's bands, how my world had outlawed emotional music after the raids. "Why do they fear it?" she asked, and I told her. "Because music changes people, makes them feel things that can't be controlled, and that terrifies those in power." One night, in the quiet of my small quarters, our hands touched, and the space between us just vanished, species and culture and fear all burning away in that heat. Yeah, that happened, and it was complicated and dangerous, and neither of us wanted to stop. She told me her family was part of a secret movement, resonance preservationists, hiding art from the censors, and she wanted me to play for the emperor himself, to show him what had been lost. I laughed. It sounded insane, suicidal. But the way she looked at me, with hope and fire and something deeper, I started to believe it might be possible. Of course, nothing stays secret long in a place like this. Lania caught wind, cornered me with a threat: perform at the Imperial concert, play their lifeless, approved music, or she'd ruin Anara, her family, the whole underground. And if I refused, worse. That's when Anara dropped the second bomb. Her father, Lord Talindra, was not just a noble, but the head of the Emperor's personal guard. And if we played this right, maybe, just maybe, we could spark something bigger we planned. Her father set the stage, the headmaster supported us, and old allies resurfaced, like the Lon Vex, the dead maestro who'd escaped execution to guide the underground. With their help, I found the Xenotone had been sabotaged, its soul muted, but together, we uncovered an ancient secret, a hidden bypass, left by the instrument's original human creators, a way to set the music free again if I was bold enough. The night of the concert, I walked on stage in a black tunic, hands sweating, heart pounding. The Emperor sat at the center, cold and regal, Lania glaring daggers, CPA agents lurking everywhere. I started with the approved piece, every note sterile, the hall dead quiet. Then, halfway through, I triggered the bypass, and the Xenotone came alive, its glow swelling, its sound breaking the air open. I played, really played, something of my own, woven from Earth's old pain and Lemnian hope, and the room changed. Nobles wept openly. The Emperor himself stared, eyes wet with memory. Even the agents hesitated, overwhelmed. Lania tried to stop it, called the performance sabotage, but before she could act, Anara's father signaled his guards, who moved quietly, blocking the CPA without a fight. I kept playing, every note a challenge, a plea. Remember who you were before fear ruled you. The Emperor stood, a tear on his cheek, and in that silence, history shifted. He dissolved the CPA on the spot, demanded the archives be opened, declared that art, real art, would return. After that, everything moved fast. The bans fell on Luminina and Earth, the old music rose again, and the Academy reopened, not for the elite, but for anyone who wanted to feel. A month later, Anara and I stood on the balcony, the moon's rising, music drifting through the city, Lemnian and human harmonies, together, something new. I turned to her, asked her to marry me the human way, and she laughed, said yes, her skin glowing like dawn. Now, I can't say everything was perfect. The empire was divided, the old guard fumed, some people feared what might come next. But you want to know the truth? When I played that music, I watched a whole civilization wake up from a dream, saw their eyes open, and I knew we'd started something nobody could stop. So what do you think? Can one voice, one song, change the world? Or does real justice need more than just a melody? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Where do you stand on art, control, and what makes a society worth living in? I want to hear your truth. Funny thing about revolutions, nobody ever tells you what comes after the applause, after the speeches, after the night the Emperor himself stands in tears and declares a new dawn. I thought that was it, that we'd finally crossed the finish line, that the old world would just crumble and the new one would rise, easy as flipping a switch. Turns out, it's never that simple. Change is noisy, messy, and nobody, not even an emperor, gets to write the ending in a single night. In the weeks after the concert, Luminina was like a city learning to breathe for the first time. The streets buzzed with music, kids jamming in alleys on old hand-me-down synths, elders singing tunes they'd only ever whispered, even street vendors traded melodies instead of gossip. The Academy was unrecognizable, no longer just for the elite, but crowded with every kind of student, humans and Lemnians, nobodies and somebodies, all chasing something they'd been denied for generations. I'd get stopped in the halls by students I'd never seen before, some with tears, some with anger, all with questions. How do I play like you? How do I write music that hurts and heals at the same time? How do I make my father listen? And I'd tell them, honestly, you don't play like me. You play like you. You take what's inside and let it out. No one can teach you that, but I'll stand by you while you try. But not everyone was celebrating. There were those who watched from the shadows, their smiles thin, their eyes sharp, waiting for the new order to trip over itself. The Cultural Preservation Authority might have been dissolved, But its loyalists hadn't disappeared. They just went underground, clutching their secrets and resentments like old weapons. Sometimes, late at night, I'd find coded notes slipped under my door, warnings, veiled threats. Not everyone wants your kind of harmony, janitor. The Empire forgets at its own peril. Even some Lemnians whispered that the old ways had protected them from chaos, that art needed boundaries or it would unravel everything. Back on Earth, it was even messier. The ban on emotional music was repealed, but that didn't mean the people knew what to do with their feelings. My old conservatory reopened, but the halls echoed with ghosts. Some teachers returned, older, broken, but stubborn. Some students came just to see what rebellion tasted like. I got messages from strangers. Thank you for giving us back our voice, but also from old friends who couldn't forgive me for surviving when so many didn't. I get that. Survivor's guilt is its own song, and it's not one you ever really stop humming. Anara and I were thrown into all this like stones into a pond, making ripples we couldn't control. We were named co-directors of the new Academy of Unrestricted Arts, which sounded impressive but mostly meant endless meetings, drafting curricula, arguing over what was too much or not enough, fielding panic calls from officials afraid that too much freedom would spark another revolution, maybe even a war. Some nights we'd collapse into bed, too tired to talk, just holding each other, her skin warm and luminous against my shoulder, both of us wondering if we were building something real or just painting over cracks in an old, crumbling wall. One evening, as the twin moons hung low and heavy, we heard a familiar knock. The lawn Vex, the maestro who'd risked everything for us, shuffled in, looking grimmer than usual. They're regrouping, he said without ceremony. Lania and her CPA loyalists, they've been stirring dissent in the outer provinces, framing your music as a weapon, claiming it will corrupt our youth, threaten the Empire's stability. He fixed me with that old, teacher's gaze. They're not wrong to fear you, Elias. You have given people back something dangerous, hope. Hope is always followed by fear, and fear is always followed by a backlash. Days later, we woke to news that shook us. Riots in the mining colonies, mobs burning instruments, banners with my face slashed across them. Human poison, some called it. The collapse of tradition. The emperor, once moved to tears, now looked old, uncertain, torn between progress and the old guard's rage. Some nights, I wondered if we'd gone too fast, if I'd started something I couldn't finish, if music really could hold a fractured empire together, or if it would just be the spark that tore it apart. The darkest twist came when we discovered Anara's younger brother, Kalis, had joined a group calling themselves the Restorers, noble youth determined to undo everything we'd done, restore boundaries, reforge the old certainties. You don't understand, he spat at us across the dinner table. Not everyone wants to drown in feelings. Some of us want order. It broke Anara's heart, broke mine too, but it made me realize change isn't a melody, it's a cacophony. You don't get harmony without discord. So what did we do? We doubled down. We opened the archives, every secret, every dirty trick the CPA had used, laid bare for the whole galaxy to see. We invited critics to the Academy. Let them scream, let them play, let them be heard. Some stayed, some stormed out, but the air was charged, alive in a way it hadn't been in centuries. The climax came not on a stage, but in the streets, when the restorers marched on the Academy, demanding my exile and the destruction of the archives. The students, human, Lemnian, even hybrids, stood arm in arm at the gates. We didn't fight back with violence, but with music. We played and sang and let every wound bleed into the open air. The city watched, the emperor watched, the whole empire watched, waiting to see what would happen. Did we win? I don't know. The protest ended without blood, but the divisions remained. Old wounds don't heal in a single chorus. The emperor held his ground, kept the reforms, but everyone knows the pendulum can always swing back. Maybe that's how it should be. Art isn't about easy answers. It's about truth. And sometimes the truth hurts. So here we are, standing on the edge of a future nobody planned for. The music drifts through the city, sometimes sweet, sometimes jagged, never safe. Anara and I still fight, still love, still wake some nights gripped by fear that the past will return. But then, I remember that moment on stage, when a whole empire wept, and I know, for a second, what we did mattered. Now I want to ask you, yeah, you watching, what do you do when freedom comes with chaos? When the old guard won't let go? When the music in your heart clashes with the world outside? Drop your truth below, because maybe the next revolution starts right here in what you choose to share.